Bum 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 bum
Yeah, yeah. Come on.
Pleasant good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Churches of Christ around the world. Your host, Roy Graneau, located in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It is a pleasure to have you with us this day that God has given to us. Let us rejoice, let us be glad in it. This program is geared to bring members of the Church of Christ information and to bring awareness of the Churches of Christ and the work that is being done in different parts of the world. This is Churches of Christ around the world. Welcome. Today we have with us Brother Ron from Uganda in East Africa. Brother Ron, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Roy.
It is a pleasure to have you, and God has blessed you to welcome or to accept the invitation to share with us information about the Church of Christ in Uganda, East Africa. Brother Ron, can you share with us some information about yourself?
Yes, Roy, my name is Angwaza Ezati Ron. I'm born in rural Uganda, that's in northwestern Uganda, in 1968. To my mom, Rachel, and my father, late Samuel. So I grew up in the days of Idi Amin, went to school during that time of the dictatorship, and at the school, on and off, dropped out in primary 7 briefly, and then continued to secondary school.
All right, thank you for that
Yeah,
information. Yes, I remember the days of Idi Amin in Africa.
yes,
That you
yeah,
remind us of the history of Uganda. So,
yes.
my brother, when were you converted? When did you get baptized in the Church of Christ?
I was baptized in 1990, September 27th. That's 33 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have been in the church sometime 33 years
Yes,
ago, and
yes.
with that information that you were baptized in the early 90s, um, how well was that work in Uganda where you got baptized? That church doing?
Uh, Roy, again, the line is going on and off.
Yes, we understand that. So should you break off, we will try to reconnect. But I was asking you, when you got baptized in 1990, what was the work of the church in that particular area doing?
Yeah, in 1990, we had come off from Idi Amin's regime, which closed down all churches. What he called non-traditional churches were all closed. and what he recognized as traditional churches were Islam, Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the Orthodox Church. Those are the only religions he allowed to operate, and he had closed all, including Church of Christ. So about 3 years after the baptism of the very first converts, the church didn't meet again until 10 years in 1980.
Hmm.
So we had a barren 10 years from 1970 to 1980, and then people who were forced into exile uh, for their faith came back and began the work again. So 1980 was like the beginning of the work, and it continued to 1990, where the actual experience of having members and worship was realized in the country.
Right. So when you got baptized, there were still scars of Idi Amin and the regime that ruled Uganda for some time. So that was under the system that you became a Christian, under a difficult system.
Yes.
Okay. So when you got baptized, um, did you attend any school of preaching, any Bible college in Uganda?
At that time in Uganda, we had the young churches and they had no Bible training school.
Okay.
So we had to, when the church saw the need that they have people who are trained, they had to send us to Nigeria, central Nigeria, in Jos School of Preaching to to learn the gospel there. So I went there for a diploma in 1997 to 1999 when I came back and continued preaching.
Wow, very good information, my brother Ron. So you went to Nigeria to train as a preacher, and you came back to your country to work.
Yes.
All right. And I know we have some internet issues because you are using your phone, so there's some background noise. Um, with Uganda, we are going to come back to the church very soon. But with Uganda, help us to understand the country, because you are coming from a dictatorship. Now you are more settled as a country. Tell us some things about Uganda. What is the size of Uganda? What is the population of Uganda?
Uganda is a landlocked country formerly colonized by the British, and we got our independence in 1962. The total area, square kilometers of Uganda is 241,550 square kilometers.
Hmm.
And we have uh, in our neighbors in the north, we have uh, South Sudan. In the south, we have Tanzania and Rwanda. And then in the east, we have Kenya. And the west, we have Democratic Republic of Congo. So we are landlocked and about 800 kilometers from the Indian Ocean.
Okay. Um, I appreciate that information, my brother, because what you're saying there to me, looking at all of the countries that you are mentioning, they are all problematic countries over the years. There have been problematic countries with wars and dictatorships and all manner of problems.
Yes.
So that is where you are located in Uganda. You are surrounded by problematic countries. Eh. So doing that now with you being almost saturated with different things around you in Africa, what do you do in Africa for a living? What sort of economy is Uganda?
Uganda is an agricultural country. I think about 35, 35% of our livelihood is derived from agriculture, and that competes closely with the tourism, which is about 1.9 billion US dollars in tourism earnings as of I think that's 2013 data that I have, which is a little
Mhm.
bit an older data, but it should have been much better than this. And then, of course, we have these indigenous people who do business, but this is not documented. What is documented is the uh, foreign corporate entities that have invested massively, and then we also have banking. I just checked out the banking information. It's as of December 2022, we have uh, uh, banking assets worth of 12.3 billion US dollars in banking, and in energy, both uh, the petroleum and uh, renewable energy. The non-renewable energy, government is investing about 2.8. These days, we are told we have petroleum, and they're investing that money in petroleum, about 1.8, and another 2.8 in petroleum investment, and 1.7 in the renewable energy. Yeah, so uh, that's briefly what picture of our economy in terms of what we depend on. Leading tourism, followed by leading is agriculture, followed by tourism. Now we have investment in energy. I think those three will be right on top there.
All right. Thank you. Very good information there, Brother Ron, getting us to understand what Uganda is all about and the economy of Uganda. So, what is the population of Uganda itself?
In the just concluded, we just had our population concluded on 25th. Uh, that will be today, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, the the population is 49,771,913. That's the 2024 census.
All right. 49 million. That is a lot of people, my brother. 49
Yeah,
million
they are.
people. So,
Mm,
Uganda is a large country, and
yes.
the Church of Christ exists there because I'm talking to you now, and you are talking with me now from Uganda, and you are the
Mm.
minister of a congregation in Uganda. So, can you share with us about how many congregations of the Churches of Christ that might exist in Uganda? Do you have that information?
Yes, I have a sketchy information on that. The church is membership is about 2 million to 4 million members across the country,
Across
and
Uganda,
with about
you are saying you have. Can you repeat that? You are saying that In Uganda, just Uganda, with about 49 million people, you are likely to have about 4 million members of the Churches
Christian.
of Christ in Uganda.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right. So, um, about how many churches are you looking at in Uganda? The number of congregations?
There are about 400 congregations.
400 congregations.
Yeah,
Wow, that is excellent work, my brother. Because I just spoke
yeah.
to in the week I just interviewed Brother Ivo from Cameroon, and he was telling us that in Cameroon has over 200 congregations of the Churches of
Mm.
Christ. And if you have that number of congregation in Uganda, it means that the church is doing exceptionally well in Africa.
Yes, it's work that has grown in the last 10 years.
Wow. I am very
Mm.
much impressed and encouraged and amazed because people outside of Africa do not know how well the church and the churches of Christ are doing in Africa. And we most times
Mm.
concentrate on the work of the church in North America, which at present is struggling. Instead of it moving forward, it is moving in a backwards direction. But with about 400 congregations in Uganda, the congregation that you are preaching for and you are working with, can you tell us something about that particular congregation?
Yes, Roy, this is one of the oldest congregations, and it's meeting right in the center of Kampala. Established actually the very first converts. They say they were baptized 1968,
1968.
and
Hmm.
1968, 3 years before Idi Amin came to power.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So the church has continued to meet there, although with these political disruptions, the regime changes, and the persecutions that follow, these individuals have stood at a certain time. They met in their own houses until they are forced out of exile, and came back still to continue with the work. And today, because the church is mainly membership is mainly people who come to work in Kampala, and they sometimes get transferred to other places where our number is about 38 people that
About
are
38
constant.
people. Okay.
Yeah,
About 38 people that meet at the congregation where you preach.
yes,
And you say you meet in Kampala, which is the capital of Uganda.
yes, sir.
And are there more congregations in the Kampala area? Because you have a very big population.
Yes. Kampala, I don't have details yet of the current census. Kampala daytime will be having about uh, uh, 4 to 5 million daytime and about 3 million at night.
Okay. All right. So if you have about
Yeah.
4 million people in the Kampala area, and you have about 400 congregations across Uganda that you know of, about how many churches of Christ that might exist in Kampala?
Kampala, we have, uh, Roy, in 1990s, what will be the Church of Christ will split into two: the missionary church and then the indigenous church.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the missionary churches, and then we have the indigenous churches, and these. two groups simply don't meet in one place and worship because
Okay.
of the things to do with the one group accepts changes in the context of worship. They see African way of life as part of that should be part of the worship experience. While the indigenous people say, no, these are things we've left and we can't be drawn back to them. If we are going back, then we rather cease to be Christians. So they have put up resistance against having
Hmm.
fellowship with the Western churches.
Okay.
They continue as a separate. So I don't know exactly how many of the Western church is meeting, but the indigenous churches, we have about five of them meeting in Kampala.
About five of them. And I understand what you are saying here. And to our listeners, I'm here talking with Brother Ron from Uganda, church minister in Kampala. And that is something that confronts the church everywhere, where you have your own culture, you have your own tradition, the way that you do things, and when people from outside come and try to impose another tradition on you, it becomes problematic for the church. um
Right.
with with the work that you know in Uganda and the work of the church that you are associated with, are some of the churches, do they have their own church buildings, or are they renting? What is the situation?
The churches that have been established outside Kampala are doing much better than the Kampala church in terms of meeting places. They
Mm.
have some have houses, they have land, but in Kampala we are not having either we don't have land or we have land, we have no building, or we have no building and we have no land. So that's the situation in Kampala. There's no one single congregation in Kampala that has a building.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge that you all face in Kampala area.
The cost of land has become exorbitant, and it's just you can't think about land. It's the billions of shillings in Kampala to
Yes,
get a
yes,
plot of 50,
yes.
100.
I share your concern, because where I am in South Edmonton in Alberta, Canada, we face the same problem trying to get land, and the cost of land, the cost of building, it's very, very, very expensive. Um, with the work, we are looking at the facilities that you all have where you all worship, and the people doing the work like yourself. You are in preaching, you are helping with the work of the church. Are you supported? Are the preachers that you know, are they supported financially?
What we usually do is you find work to do elsewhere and do work which you are not paid for as a preacher.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think the other preachers are having the same experience. Like when I returned from the Bible school, we didn't have money, and I worked for some time until I had to get a job to be able to work. So it's same experience in those other four congregations.
All right, that you know. And it's a challenge that we have in the churches of Christ. We have people who want to preach, we have people who are preaching, and they have to fend for themselves. They have to work secularly. They have to have a job and keep on doing the work of preaching. We hope people who are listening will understand the situation that exists in different parts of the world where preachers are concerned. Um, with the work, do you have churches that you know in Uganda that these churches that they have elders with them? Some of
Uh,
the work do they have elders?
I know of two congregations in Western Uganda.
Hmm.
Uh, that is Kasese area, but I think they disbanded the eldership in one of the churches. So there's one congregation I would say has eldership, but the rest of the country is a no.
No. Okay, so most
No,
of the congregations they have been served by a preacher.
right.
The situation there in Uganda. Um, what are some of the things that you, as Ugandans, what are some of the things that you do in terms of evangelism, in terms of trying to reach out to people to spread the gospel in that huge country?
We do this door to door evangelism.
Hmm.
We do seminars. We do this open air preaching, the crusade things. We do
Yes.
that a lot of times, and uh, and we do visits from with congregations from time to time as well.
Okay. So what is the response like? Is the response good, or are people not interested in hearing the gospel, the word of God?
The response in the places we've so far been to in the last 10, 14 years has been good in the sense that when you camp in that place for 1 week, you baptize almost 20, 30 people, and
Hmm.
there the church starts. That's how we've established churches in almost nearly all the towns of Uganda.
Okay. But in doing that, which is excellent work, which is what I'm from the Caribbean, and that is what we are used to in the Caribbean islands. What is the retention like? You baptize 20, 30 people in a gospel meeting effort. What is the retention? Are you retaining most of the people, or after time, most of them leave or drop out?
The retention will be about 60 to 70%. And uh, initially we will go just a strange place with no focal person, and you do the work, you leave, and when you leave, nobody is there to watch over those souls. But we had to reverse the that process such that if you are mapping out a place for evangelism, you have to find someone at least who can provide leadership, or we find a congregation in the neighborhood and work with them so that they continue to go back to teach and to encourage, so that these members are retained. But before we learned through the hard way, we
Mhm.
just go there, baptize, and you come back, nobody is there, and the
That's
people have
right.
gone back to where you. Yeah,
Okay. So it is the same problem everywhere. Is the trial and error and failure sometimes approach to church work, which wasn't wise.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Uganda is a country of 49 million people, and you have about 400 churches of Christ existing that you know of in Uganda. And you yourself, you had to travel to Nigeria to be trained as a preacher. At present, do you have any school of preaching, any college that is now serving this huge country of Uganda?
Yes, we have uh, two, I think two or three Bible schools One is a Deer Valley operated school between Kampala and Entebbe, and then we have another school in northern Uganda where I work, and then there's another one in eastern Uganda. Yeah, those are three schools that are helping with the work.
Okay, so at least there are things in place to help with the work of the church in Uganda. I know you have internet issues with you, so before we end here today, I just want to ask you, you're coming from a dictatorship in the 70s. What are things like in Uganda at present? Are you a stable country now?
A lot has changed in the last uh, 30 coming to 40 years when the current regime came to power through Museveni, through kind of a gun, a guerrilla, transformed into a democracy in the last 36 years.
Hmm.
And relatively, they have restored minimum peace for us to operate in the sense that nobody harasses us on when we decide to go to do our work. Nobody harasses us as long as you take permission from the authorities. So I think it's relatively a peaceful environment for the work for us.
Okay, that's great. So, you operate in a country like that. What is the religious climate like in the country? Do you have a lot of denominations? And what are some of the prominent religious groups you have in Uganda?
We have Roman Catholicism. That's 39.3%
Mm.
are Roman Catholic. Yeah, and then you have Anglican Church. That's 32% of the population is Anglican, and then we have Pentecostalism, which is growing in a very alarming rate with 11%, 11.1% of the population, and Islam is 13.7%, and then finally we have the traditional religions. Uh, that's 1.2%. But this is the official record, and it does not account for all the religious groups. So the
Mm.
church is bundled together either as Anglican or Pentecostalism, depending on the opinion of the people who are collecting this data.
Yes, I understand that. That is how census is being done in
Uh,
most countries. But I want to thank you, my brother Ron, for being with us with all of your problems that you had this morning in trying to log in and to be with us for this. I want to commend you for the work that you have been doing with the Churches of
mm,
Christ in your home country, Uganda, a country in East Africa, and a country that was once ruled by a dictator, but you are now stable and the church exists. And the information that you
yes.
presented to us this morning, very useful for all of us in different parts of the world to understand that in Uganda, you have about 400 congregations of the Churches of Christ, and you have about 4 million members that exist in Uganda. So I want to appreciate you for coming in, for providing us with that information about your country and the work that you are doing. My prayers and the prayers of many people are with you, And we pray that God will continue to open doors and bless the work that you are doing in Uganda. Do you have any final thoughts before we close here today?
Yes, I want to thank you for creating this platform for us to interact. I don't know, I'm praying that this probably will grow so that more and more information can be passed, interactions with our own people, and there's many people as we can have, so that these technologies can be adopted for productive work of the Lord. Thank you.
Amen, my brother. So I'm Roy Graneau with brother Ron from Uganda. Next week or next month, may I say, not next week, but next month, June, we will be looking at Zimbabwe, and we will go down to Bermuda in the Caribbean to learn of the Church of Christ in Bermuda and the Church of Christ in Zimbabwe. So it has been a great day learning of our brothers and sisters and the Churches of Christ in Uganda. I am Roy Graneau for Churches of Christ around the world, saying to you, go out and make it a great day for the Lord. Thank you for being with us today.
Bum 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 bum
Yeah, yeah. Come on.
bum